Okay, so the project started like master planning maybe almost 10 years ago. It's one of those tricky little projects for Melbourne Grammar. Because the school is landlocked, it has very limited opportunities to build new buildings. And the music school is in bits and pieces around the campus, but here it had been established since the 1960s and much loved facility, but got incredibly run down. And so our strategy here with the school was to convince them to retain the 1960s Mockridge building and what's called Bromby House, and build a new infill building between them and join the whole thing into a single music school. So, next slide coming up. So the school bought Bromby House in 1959 or 60, and soon thereafter, Mockridge Stahle Mitchell built this beautiful little, what's called the Myer Music School. It was funded by the Myer Foundation. And what I really love about it is, apart from, we all love mid-century architecture from these guys, is the way that it dealt with its suburban context and the setback in the street. And the opening of it was pretty important for the school. It was the beginning of their music program and continues today to be very enthusiastically supported. Bromby House was an interesting building. It started out life as a single story and had the two-story addition. The school's music master was living there and using it partly as part of the music school as well. So it was this kind of funny sort of live-in music school thing going on. So the original allotment, which is pretty amazing, it was a building with a very large block, which obviously progressively got subdivided. There was a lot of changes to the building, which we had to track because it's in a heritage overlay. And a lot of hard work done with Bryce Rayworth to convince the council about the merits of the project. So you can see this is the site. It's just on the corner opposite the DCM science building. So it's just off the campus, but that sort of seems to work really well with the students. So early on, there was a feasibility study, and you can see here the rooms, the downstairs rooms and the upstairs from the Mockridge building, and then Bromby House proper. And so basically there's a spatial analysis to work out, well, how do we fit the music school in this location, given those arrangements of rooms, which were kind of given, and a new building effectively needing to be 2 stories to fit in the middle. So our strategy when we looked at that was no way that you could put a 2-story building in between the two, because it would have just, been one big blocky looking building. So the idea was just to push the building down into the ground and create a big underground music studios, which works really well for music studios. They don't need daylight, and it's a residential area. So the idea of them being acoustically separated was good. And then all of the other stuff that didn't fit in these 2 buildings goes happily in the middle. And so starting at the basement, you can see a pretty major piece of excavation, 2 big music studios with lockers, lifts and stairs. And that's the kind of excavation, pretty serious stuff. You can see the condition of the Mockridge building in the background. It had got very run down. And then the middle ground, you can see a series of a pretty classic kind of music school arrangement, dozens of little rooms, which is really nice arrangement between teaching staff offices and music tuition in the front building. And then the main entry, reception, more music practice, and then the stair to go downstairs. And then a new breezeway linking the 2 buildings. So this is very much seen in the manner of the Mockridge building, sitting as a linking breezeway. And then upstairs, similar, fantastic upstairs studio, digital recording as well, and then more music tuition spaces. And you can see a kind of the building, the bulk of the building with a bridge and a lift to service it. So it's a series of layered screens that sort of sit back in a simple manner with a grey concrete brick. You can see the excavation below and the linking building. So the condition here, this is what it was like. It was a sort of ramshackle collection. The head of music was a very eccentric chap. He kept sheep. I don't know how he managed that. And you can see the sort of living quarters here. It was shambolic. And it had got very run down. Likewise with the Mockridge building, you can see here the underside of the butterfly roof. It had just got terribly run down. So really there's a massive amount of work to do to fix the two buildings and then insert the new building, both from an acoustic, thermal and regulatory point of view, as you can imagine. What's really nice about it, I think, is the way that it just sits in the residential neighbourhood as if it's always been there. It's a very simple scheme. Students come and go here. There are other entryways and delivery points, but essentially everyone comes and goes via this main breezeway. You can see that the bridge link is a pop-up roof lantern which lights the interior of the main foyer and the stair that takes you down into the space underneath. And the front is this sort of little setback courtyard where the students sort of hang around before and after music class. The Mockridge building, you know, an awful lot, I mean, a terrible construction in the 60s, like, you know, porous concrete, rusting steel, thin as, you know, so, but a lot of work done to keep the original. So it's double and triple glazing, the original roof, complete replacement of the roof. So the skeleton of the building remained, but everything else had to be rebuilt. And likewise, the front building was once a very fine, simple building, like you can see here, which has been, you know, got back to its kind of origins more or less, and has an entranceway into the interior of the teaching building. So again, you can sort of see the street as you come into the breezeway. It's sort of top lit, lockers for kids, stretching into the stair, rebuilt, and you can imagine 1960s stair didn't comply. Everything has to be rebuilt to be kept. One of the head of music office with his recording studio, you can see looking through into the big studio under the butterfly roof. And this is just a beautiful space. As you can see, we've got all the windows back around the perimeter. There's got a roof floats above the space. The doorway here is to the lift, which brings all the big instruments up and down. And then the air conditioning is built in this sort of fat wall that's been added to the side so that we didn't have any interruption. In fact, the whole building, you don't see any air conditioning gear at all. It's kind of all hidden in the fabric of the building. Then the interior, bit of kind of inspiration from that you know, fabulous crazy 60s tiles and a wooden, you know, kind of very tactile wooden interior. Downstairs, again, the simple foyer and the lockers into the two music spaces with a very beautiful panelized wall system. I mean, these kind of acoustic spaces are just a delight to be in. And then the house itself, quite a simple house. Lucky it had nice big rooms, which have adapted easily. If you remember, this is the room that had the two sheep in it. And just very simple, didn't need to change much in this house except get back to its bare bones. So thank you. I think that must be my time.